Okay. Could we please have a 1 minute silence for the death of Her Majesty the Queen? Thank you, everybody. So I'd like to introduce all present at the meeting today. We have Councillor Paul Edlin, Councillor Annette Ireland, Councillor Chris Lundy, Councillor Betty Cunningham, Provost Montague, Councillor Andrew Morrison. The officers supporting the committee today are Julie Nicholl, Planning and Building Standards Manager, Alan Pepler, Principal Planner Development Manager, John Drugan, Senior Planner, Ian Walker, Senior Planner, Siobhan Wilson, Solicitor, Leona Allison, Assistant Committee Service Officer, and Sharon McIntyre, Clerk to the Planning Applications Committee. Joining us online, we have John Marley, East Renfrewshire Roads Department, and Stephen Reid, East Renfrewshire Health and Social Care Partnership. I'd like to pass you on to Sharon.
Just to confirm that there's no apologies for the meeting today, and are there any declarations of interest? Thank you.
The business to consider today, we have agenda item 3, application for planning permission for consideration, and there are 4 applications for the committee to consider today. 3 relate to the same development. Application number 2021-0232 TP, erection of residential care and nursing home and associated car park, formation of new access infrastructure and landscaping, and this is at Greenbank Church, 36 Eaglesham Road, Clarkston, East Kilbride. I'd like to ask Alan Pepler to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. Planning application 2021-0232 TP for the erection of a care home and associated works is one of 3 related applications at the site of Greenbank Church. The other planning application 2021-0405 TP is for an extension to the church to house enhanced community facilities as well as for a single house, and the third application is for listed building consent related to the extension to the C-listed Greenbank Church. Although the 2 planning applications are separate and require to be assessed separately, Greenbank Parish Church is the applicant for the extension to the church and new house, and the joint applicant for the care home planning application. Greenbank Parish Church have advised that the release of the land by the church will enable the development of the new care home, while the income from the land sale will complete the funding required for the extension to the church, which will become an important community resource. Turning to the papers, consultation responses have been received from various parties as set out on page 9. The majority have no objections, but Clarkson Community Council have objected on the grounds of lack of car parking, congestion, pedestrian safety, size of the building, and impact on infrastructure and GP surgeries. The Health and Social Care Partnership also does not support the proposal on grounds of over-provision and increase in cost due to in-migration of residents. In addition, they state that the applicant has not evidenced need in line with policy requirements. A total of 112 representations have been received, with 63 objections and 49 in support. Please note that the report refers to 109 representations. A further 3 have been received following the publication of the report. The matters raised are summarised in pages 9 and 10 of the papers. Matters include visual impact, impact on listed building, loss of amenity through privacy and overshadowing, loss of trees, road safety, impact on parking, drainage, construction impacts and oversupply of care homes. The supporting comments include that the proposal meets needs in the local area, will provide community facilities, it is sensitively designed, will provide local employment opportunities, and it retains mature trees and the landscape setting. The 3 additional representations received refer to concerns over visual impact due to the elevated and prominent position of the site, concerns over the lack of amenity space for residents and fire safety due to multiple floors and the lack of mobility of residents, traffic impacts and lack of parking, and comment on why the number of spaces deemed acceptable seems to have changed during the course of the application based on a traffic survey. Loss of space or recreational land is also cited in respect of the loss of the community buildings in place just now. A suitable alternative should be found, and there is no guarantee that the church application will be approved. The representations are responded to within the main assessment part of the report and also on page 20. In terms of the new representations received, the matters raised are primarily considered already in the papers. The comment on fire safety concerns is noted, but this would be a matter considered by building standards and is not considered to be a material planning consideration. The issue of loss of community building and reference to policy D12 is noted. In this regard, it is recognised that the proposal will result in the loss of community facilities through demolition. While it is not possible to legally tie this application and the application for the church extension together, it is recognised that the church proposes to replace and enhance community facilities as part of their wider proposals. As such, there is considered to be no conflict with the local development plan in this respect. Excuse me. The proposal is for a 58-bed care home at 3 and 4 storey height, including a residence terrace and garden area, new access on site, parking for 16 cars, service area landscaping and tree planting. The existing church halls and caretaker's house will be demolished to accommodate the development. 18 existing trees will be removed and 26 new trees planted. The site has variable ground levels, with the residential properties to the rear on Woodbank Crescent sitting around 3 to 4 metres higher. The site itself is 2 to 3 metres higher than Eaglesham Road, although it slopes severely down at the northern end. In terms of the assessment, the main issues identified in the report are design and visual impact, impact on neighbouring properties, impact on listed building and its setting, impact on green space, trees and protected species, roads and drainage, and specialist residential and supported accommodation. I'll share some slides of the scheme. So this aerial image shows the existing church building, this location with the red dot, and existing buildings, the community hall stretching and the further north with the caretaker's house. The trees fronting Eaglesham Road can be seen, and the shopping area called the Sheddings is across the road together with the associated parking. This plan shows the extent of the application site relative to the proposed care home site as outlined in red. The church hall and caretaker's house again, you can see them clearly in this area, they're to be removed. This plan shows the location of the proposed building and associated landscaping. For orientation purposes, north is to this, the eastern side, the right-hand side of the plans. As it's been rotated 90 degrees, the church building can be found on this side. The main vehicle access proposed is to the northern part of the site in this area from Eaglesham Road. The proposed parking is in 2 separate locations, as you can see, with most parking to the south, adjacent to the church, and some parallel parking to Eaglesham Road. The applicant has proposed a landscaping scheme which includes retention of several of the trees along the frontage and additional planting to soften the scheme and mitigate any tree removal. There is residence amenity space to the rear of the site in this area. This slide shows the street scene view from Eaglesham Road. As you can see, the proposed building stretches a considerable distance along the frontage, but it is substantially lower than the church, which dominates the area visually. The change in levels in the site means that the proposed building is 3 stories at the end closest to the church and 4 stories at the far end, where the land at present falls away. As mentioned in the report, the applicant has amended the proposals to reduce the height by 1 metre and set it back further 4 metres from where it was originally proposed in order to reduce the visual impact. In addition, projecting bay elements have been introduced to break up the long frontage. Given the setback from the church and substantially lower height, it is considered that the building will not have a significant adverse impact on the setting of the church. This slide shows a comparison between the existing buildings and proposed, and is useful for demonstrating the impact on the wider area. The top slide shows the position, the top image shows the position of the building relative to the existing buildings on site. The blue outline, if you can see it, is the proposed building, and underneath it you can see just hopefully the existing buildings. The bottom image shows the height differences. There's not a substantial increase in height compared to the existing buildings, although the mass at 4-storey to the northern end is a substantial change. Despite this, given the urban context, setback from the road and proposed landscaping, the proposal is considered an acceptable addition visually in the local area. These images just show the detail of the elevations. The materials are buff colour facing brick, dark grey roof tiles and dark grey windows. I'll just quickly run through these. In terms of the impact on neighbours, the main aspect for consideration is considered to be the relationship to the properties to the rear. A detailed assessment of the potential amenity impacts has taken place. The applicant has provided section drawings, as shown here, showing the relationship of the boundary, the rear boundary at 4 points. These sections are at the southern end, where the building is 3-storey, and you can see these are the residential properties in Woodbank Crescent at a higher height than the proposed building in this area. So these just demonstrate the relationship. These sections are at the northern part of the site where it's 4-storey, and you can see that the cut into the land is slightly further, and that also indicates the variation in distance between the different properties. The property at the rear, just for illustration, is 39 metres away from the rear of the proposed care home. It should also be noted that during the course of the application, the Planning Service outlined concerns over potential loss of amenity due to the position of rear balconies. These were then removed. In amenity terms, we are satisfied that the relationship to the properties to the rear is acceptable. Other amenity impacts are assessed on page 15 of the papers. In terms of road impacts, the papers set out the position on pages 17 and 18. Following submission of supporting information, a total of 16 car parking spaces are considered acceptable to support the proposal. A transport statement has been submitted to support the proposal, which concluded that during the network peak, which is 8 AM to 9 AM and 5 PM to 6 PM, there would be no significant impact on the network. 2 electric charging points are included within the site. It is also noted that the site is in a highly accessible location where sustainable transport options are available. Roads and Transportation have no objections, subject to conditions. An assessment of the proposal against policy SG3, which is specialist residential and supported accommodation of the adopted local plan, is detailed on pages 18 and 19 of the papers. Policy SG3 has 5 criteria for proposals for care homes or similar accommodation to be assessed against. In this regard, it is recognised that the site lies in a sustainable urban location and that it will not have a significant detrimental impact on the character or amenity of the area. The applicant has provided supporting information which states that there is a shortfall of bed spaces and this is predicted to increase. The HSCP were consulted on the proposals and have confirmed that they do not support the proposal as there is strong evidence that there is an oversupply of care home facilities in East Renfrewshire which could make some existing facilities vulnerable to closure. They also highlight concerns over increasing cost pressures on existing health and care infrastructure from the development and in-migration of residents. The HSCP do recognise the important role Greenbank Church plays in supporting the local community in Clapston and supports the provision of community facilities associated with Greenbank Church. It is considered on balance that the proposal, while not supported by the HSCP, does comply with other criteria within policy SG3. Further, the proposal is supported by strategic policies 1, 2 and SG7, particularly in relation to bringing employment into the area and that no significant infrastructure requirements arising from the proposal have been identified. In summary, the proposal is considered to be in compliance with the Local Development Plan 2 as set out in the report and concluded on page 20. The recommendation is therefore for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pepler. I'd like to open up to the committee now for any questions they'd like to have. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Chair. I've got several questions. If you permit me to ask, I've got ones about planning, but I've also got roads questions as well. But I would start off by saying that I do know how important, and I think it was touched on there, that the role of the church is in the local community. Because just recently, I mean, we've had Stamplin Church close, which is felt deeply in the local community. And I know that there's real difficult decisions that the churches are having to make just now. And I also know that the church are looking, I mean, they're looking at all their estates and the properties and what they can do. But it's important. It's important in the local community. Now, I do have a couple of questions. So with regard to the care home itself, and it's a question to the planners, when you looked at it, is it incongruous to the area? And how was that looked at? Does it sit forward of the existing listed building as it is? I'm kind of concerned about that. I was heartened there to hear that the applicant, now, am I right in saying it's a joint applicant? I think that was mentioned. Could you just confirm that? That they had removed the balconies, so that does mean that they are listening to comments from the planners. So that's good to hear. But could you just confirm that, and have any other changes been made from the applicant? Now, with regard to car parking, and I'm really pleased to see, I think John's here, John Marley. I've got a couple of questions about parking, because if I am honest, I have concerns about the parking. We passed by there today and it was incredibly busy. I don't know if any of the other members noticed that. We were on our site visits for the local review body, but there was parking on both sides of the road. There's mention about taking 2 spaces away. First of all, where are the build-outs on the plan? Where are they going to be? Where are the 2 spaces that are getting removed? Are they opposite the shops? I'm concerned about the visibility displays and how the creation of access will affect parking opposite. It is all about the parking opposite. It is a really bad area. There's issues there all the time. It's a difficult place to get parked. It's a difficult place to get a parking space, but there are accidents or near accidents that happen a lot in that area. So I am at pains to make sure that roads have properly, looked at this and taken it on board, because there are only 16 spaces. So that's my other question. How many parking spaces per resident are there now? How many staff will be employed, and how many spaces are allocated for them? And then how many visitor spaces does this leave? It seems incredibly tight. we gave permission to Drumby Care Home. I know there's another application in and that may or may not come before us, but that is a care home and assisted living, but that has 55, I think, car parking spaces there, which is substantially more. I am really concerned about the 16 car parking spaces, so if Rhodes could maybe touch on that. There's also, yes, how many staff? How many are left for residents? Where are the build-outs going to be? And if John could just elaborate a little bit on that, because that is something that does bother myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If we cover the planning with the first part, then I'll go to Rhodes, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in terms of your comments regarding the build, okay. In terms of your comments regarding the building and whether it's incongruous, yes, we did assess that. Clearly, there is a substantial change in appearance because of the length of the building, but there is a significant setback and landscaping to the front of the site. So on elevation plans, sometimes it appears more imposing than it will actually be in reality. So no, we're satisfied that the building is okay. I think they're using the land where they can, so they're building into the existing slope. So that's why it's 4-storey at one part and 3-storey at the other. They have also, at our request, looked at the front elevation to see whether they could change the appearance of it, to break it up, for want of a better word, and they have done that. So although the building hasn't substantially changed in terms of size, they have introduced some measures to try and improve the visual impact. So no, we do recognise it's a major change visually, but I think given the urban context, you do expect to see buildings of a substantial size in this sort of area. It is a joint application between the church and the care home developer. I think those were the main planning points.
Thank you, Alan. Could I ask Mr. Pepper to come in from the Roads, please? Sorry, Mr. Marley. Sorry, John. Thank you.
No problem. You hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Got you. Right. Couple of questions there from Councillor Ireland. In terms of are you able to put the plan up, or I could probably put it up if I could find it. In terms of the build outs, is that possible at your end? There is a drawing supplied, or would you like me to share it? Oh. I'm not hearing anything, just in case so if you...
Sorry, we're just trying to get the plans up.
That's fine, no problem. In terms of the other question Councillor Ireland asked in relation to the 16 number parking spaces, the initial application, we went back to them with our concerns about the number of parking spaces and the visibility display, both points that the councillor has raised. In terms of the spaces, one of the things we would use the Scots guidelines, which was based, if you like, on the old Strathclyde guidelines. And what we're finding as we're working with these things, that they tend to be out of touch a wee bit in terms of numbers. And what the applicant did, they employed ACOM to come back and look at it. Now, they've looked at a number of different sites that they run themselves and others, and looked in terms of the parking ratio, and it's on a par with what they've done in our area as well in other sites. Once again, I could possibly pull that up in a minute, or it's in the ACOM report where it gives that comparison. But now that I'm just looking at that on site. What is it okay if I share? Because it's a different drawing I'm looking at in terms of the build outs, the detail. I'll just try taking the share. And is that now displaying a drawing? I'm seeing you, Julie, so if you, that's it. That's all the feedback I'm getting. So here's the existing lookout onto Eaglesham Road, the existing access. If you can see, my cursor is here. Now, in terms of the overall on-street parking, there's it's zero effect, if you like. What the proposal is to do is to create a new access further north at this end of the site, and in terms of visibility, to create a build out along here to take the vehicle leaving the premise, if you like, further out, and improve intervisibility for that car leaving the site and any cars on Eaglesham Road. So that's an overall improvement on this obtuse angle that's on the access just now. The vehicles are coming out, having to look back over their shoulder, so the existing access isn't great. In terms of the overall parking spaces, there'll be 2 put back in here when that access would be closed off. There would be 2 are being proposed on-street parking to be put back in here, and thus kind of give an overall balance for the 2 lost here of the net impact. The net impact will be 0 within the bounds of the public road. In terms of visibility, that's much improved. The new access is meeting perpendicular at right angles to Eaglesham Road, and there's all round a kind of better arrangement in terms of entering and exiting the public road into a private area, if you like. Just wondering if no. The other thing, the other area was really just to show, I think it's the further up in this report, if you bear with me, sorry about this. Yeah, so they've actually produced some figures looking at, and I'll increase the size of that. Is that legible, Julie? Yeah. So these are other care homes in the area, and as you can see, the proposed development is looking at 3.62, and it's in a par with the other developments within the area, and the one they reckon is closest to it is the Whitecraigs one, which is slightly better than the Whitecraigs one. I know certainly there's one round in Crookford Road which I had concerns about myself, but there's been no evidence of spill out from that one onto the Crookford Road. I don't know if I've covered all the points the councillor raised, but happy to hand back and get some feedback. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to raise an issue. Perhaps colleagues will feel the same way, but that's the first time I've seen that report, and I feel if we are being shown that in the presentation, we should have had prior sight of that prior to attending this committee. The AECOM report is clearly instrumental in the change of the recommendation from the Roads Department, and we have not seen those comparable sites until just now. And I don't think that sits well with me, Chair. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Councillor Morrison, the information that you've seen is available online. There's a link when the papers are issued to you. There's a link which takes you to our planning system, online planning system, and there are a number of documents which are available for public view. The document is available to view for by the public. So it's there as a background, along with the reports of handling which are issued to you. There's obviously a raft of supporting information which comes in with the application, and that's one element of it.
It is one document of 183, so it is quite a lengthy amount, and when councillors have provided papers when we think that that's the key points. But if I may, Chair, I would like to ask a question on that, and that is with regards to the comparable sites. What is the nature of the locations of those sites? Are they urban developments? Are they city centre developments? Or are they, like this proposal, a suburban development? But the transportation links would be completely different and reduced compared to a fully urban setting. Thank you.
Mr. Marley, could you come in on that, please? Do you know the answer to that?
Certainly, yeah. Yeah, that certainly is that's an obvious kind of consideration. And now, where this particular development is being proposed, the active travel and sustainable transport links to it is good in terms of rail station, in terms of buses, in terms of walking, cycling, etc. So that lends to the argument that the number of spaces can be reduced. There's only a maximum number given, if you like, and as long as they don't exceed that, that's a maximum parking standard, then that's fine. But in terms of where it's located, it's actually located quite favourably in terms of links, and the point you're making.
Thank you, John. I'd like to just ask a few points, please, just based on some of the things that were said. I saw your statistics there based on the parking spaces to the ratio of the size of the care home. Now, this is I think it's a 58-bed care home we've got. We've got 16 parking spaces. There's going to be more than 100 staff employed in this. You mentioned the kind of public transport. The public transport, the nearest one is to Eaglesham, the bus service, is shocking, absolutely terrible. It is in one of the busiest junctions I know, because I go down there a lot. That's my vet practice where I take my dog to. I was down there yesterday at 3 o'clock and it was pandemonium. You have the kids coming out of school and there's hundreds of them. There is no traffic crossing at that section. There's kids running across the road. The parking is just ridiculous as it is. All this is going to do is put parking into the streets, into the surrounding streets. I just don't see how you're going to fit, even just with the staff alone. I know they won't all drive, that's fine, but you're having 100 staff visitors going into 16 spaces. Bearing in mind, you've put the key points are between 8 and 9 in the morning and 5 and 6 at night. I would say visiting in the afternoon is going to be one of the key points. You'll have the road busy, you'll have visiting, you'll have the children out at school. I think it's just going to be a nightmare at that particular area. That's kind of the main point I've got on it at the moment. Okay, sorry, just finally one. In the initial document, you stated that 35 would be needed as per road standards, but then the applicant came back, they employed a consultant to do it. Why didn't the roads department do all that in the beginning? If you could comment on some of that, please, John. Thank you.
No problem, Councillor. In terms of the existing situation there, in terms of, you outlined in terms of the amount of activity on the public road with the shops, kids, etc. That's just the existing situation. And the argument, I suppose, from the developer and AECOM is that they are providing adequate off-street parking, that the parking shouldn't impinge on the public road network. I mean, that's what they've got to demonstrate, if you like, to us. In terms of the peak times, it's a wee bit of a kind of red herring in that the visitor times are throughout the day. There's no fixed times, so it doesn't clash, any one specific time with what's going on the public road network. Having said that, I suppose there's maybe days like Christmas, where there'll be a lot of visiting on a particular day, but generally speaking, you can visit any times. And in any case, the peak time on the hours, 8 to 9 in the morning and in the evening times are both times like either, clients are going to bed or kind of getting up, and you wouldn't normally expect visitors at that time. The maximum, it was probably the maximum parking standards. When we kind of look at these things, we'll always quote maximum. We always look for the maximum, and that's our starting point from the roads perspective. And it's on the developer, if you like, to make a case as to why there should be a reduced number. So same with visibility displays, same with N. We always start overly protective, if you like, and then any negotiation would be from that point. Visitor times, staff. In terms of staffing, yeah, the report alludes to given the types of jobs, etc., and the surveys they've done within their own developments of a similar ilk show that sustainable, if you like, bus, rail, maybe less or so walking, cycling, are used by the staff a lot, and therefore helps to keep the number of staff cars down. But that's all kind of outlined in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Marlett. Has anybody else got any questions? Councillor Cunningham.
Thanks. That building, it's not a 4-storey building, it's ridiculous. 15, right, staff, most staff drive to work and park for the day. Across the road is the shops, the baker's always mobbed, the vets is busy. Across the road at the, Alice McCall, isn't it? And the co-op is across the road. I mean, I've parked there, I don't know how many times, and sometimes I've gone around twice before I eventually get a car park place. You're driving in it, so you're coming out back, and you can get hurt any time, driving up with things driving up, so they don't stop for you to get you out. And I just feel there's a school and a nursery further up the road, coming out going to school at between 8 and 9, coming down right in the afternoon, 3-ish, right down. I mean, they're kids, they're coming down in groups, they walk in front of your car, they don't really bother, so all that's coming down. There's a couple of zebra crossings, that's it. But I mean, to think that 15 car park spaces does a 4-storey building, with staff and everybody else is ridiculous, I think. Right, it doesn't matter what polite way you put it, it's scandalous. And it's an accident waiting to happen, right? So I feel as though that's totally, and the size of the building, I mean, for 58 beds, it is a big development, right, as far as the nursing home goes. Will you fill it, for one thing? And just, it's, for me, it's too big for the area, of the business of that street. Even the way it stands now, trying to get into the bakers, trying to get into the vet, and trying to get into the cooperative is a nightmare. And then you've got the vans, the delivery vans and everything else. No, sorry, it's not enough for me.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Has any more comments by anybody? Councillor Morrison?
Yes, I echo the comments made by Councillor Cunningham. Although it may look like a commercial consideration on the face of it, whether there's occupancy or not, there is, however, a point within the planning framework, Scottish planning policy, and it clearly says in page 12 of the Councillor's papers that the planning system should support socially sustainable places. And I wonder how compatible having half-empty care homes throughout communities is compatible with being socially sustainable. Because I do think that we are looking at over-provision. Just along the road, we have Drumby Crescent, which was referred to by Councillor Ireland, and that's great. Now, that may come before the Plan Committee. We do not know. We need to look at each case in isolation. But we also do need to reconcile that with whether the decision we take today is socially sustainable for Clarkson. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Could I bring in Mr. Reid to make a comment, please? Because I see on the papers it said the East Renfrewshire Health and Social Care Partnership does not support proposals on the grounds of over-provision. Could you make some comment on that, please, Mr. Reid? Thank you.
Yep, I'm happy to take any questions from any members of the committee on it. For this application and for other recent applications, we've raised our concerns about over-provision, really based on what we're seeing in our analysis of the use of care homes as they stand in East Renfrew. So we have high levels of vacancy of vacant beds at our care homes, and we have had that for a number of years. So that's really our main concern, the main reason we haven't supported this application. We're also, have raised our concerns about costs to the HSCP, and that's direct costs through things like free personal and nursing care for residents. So there's a direct cost to the HSCP that isn't met through any funding mechanism that's linked to new development of care homes. And our third kind of our concern is around more general demand pressures and costs to some of the universal health and care services in the local area, district nursing, community nursing. There'll be care home liaison nursing going in and other services for the care home. So those are the pressures, and it's just really, we want to recognise that there are, for whatever benefits, there are implications and costs as a result of care home development, and we want to be satisfied that the pace of development of care homes in the local area meets demand, and we're not satisfied at this point that it is, and we are concerned about this application and other applications resulting in maybe an oversaturation of the market, and that has a knock-on effect for the viability of the existing care home market. And we would be concerned about care home closures and the impact on that on some of our our elderly and most vulnerable residents in East Renfrewshire that are living in existing care homes. So that's kind of our main concerns in summary. So happy to take any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Edlin.
Could I be permitted to ask Councillor Ireland to clarify something she said for me? You mentioned that the church and the impact on the church of the development. Could you expand on that a little bit? I'm kind of torn here because I have seen the other parking situations that were referred to with small numbers, and on the occasions I went to these care homes, there was adequate parking available. So I'm not swayed by the fact that there may be inadequate parking. I'm not convinced that there is inadequate parking, but I would like to know more about the economic situation with the church and the local community, which I don't really understand at the moment. If you could clarify, I'd be grateful.
Councillor Edlin, could I come in, please? That is not actually a planning consideration.
Sorry, I thought.
No, it doesn't come under the planning.
So it doesn't affect our consideration.
No, it doesn't affect our decision.
Okay, my apologies.
Julie can say more.
Okay, my apologies then.
Thank you, Chair. There are obviously three applications relating to the church site before us today. The first application, they're not linked. We're dealing with each application on its merit. The first application is a joint application between the church and the care home provider. Alan, in his presentation, had referred to some supporting statement which had been provided by the Greenbank Church at the planning application stage. It was submitted, and that is available to view online. So I think that was, I think Councillor, not words in your mouth, I think Councillor Ireland was referring to wider issues that she was aware of in terms of the wider community and other churches. But there is supporting information there from the church in relation to this application, if that's of help to you.
Any further questions for anybody? Councillor Morrison.
I think we should be reluctant to consider anecdotal advice based on individual experiences. For other residential care homes will have different road situations out with the perimeter of that development where people could park on the regular road. And as some members of the committee observed today on the site visits for local review body, that is not the case at this proposed development. And there would have to be sufficient car parking spaces within the curtilage of the development. But the National Roads Development Guide, I'm looking at this just now, page 168, it very clearly sets out a guideline figure, and that figure's been arrived at for a reason. Whilst it can be discounted for sustainable transport, there is a bus service. The bus service has been reduced in recent years. There is a train station, but it's a bit of a walk away, particularly for people who reside within this facility, and also for an urban area, but I would argue this is a suburban area. So I don't see that there are actually sufficient grounds to reduce the guideline figure by more than 50%. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ireland.
There was just one last question, and because I'm glad Councillor Morrison did mention, I've got the National Roads Development Guide in front of myself as well, and that does say one space. Yeah, one space. It's very clear. But I did have a question for planners. It was why there's no development contributions here. Why have these been set aside? Why are there no development contributions being sought? Thank you.
Mr. Pepler.
Thank you. As it currently stands, we don't take developer contributions for care home developments. Simple as that, really. It's for housing developments, for mainstream housing. Obviously, it's something that the impact on primary healthcare, etc., is something that the council or the planning service is considering as an issue going forward. But as it currently stands, we're not in a position to ask for contributions for these types of developments.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Montague.
Thank you very much, Chair. It was actually the aspect of developer contributions in general and going forward, given that the the Health and Social Care Partnership have flagged up the potential over-provision and the on-cost, not just about the infrastructure for provision of GPs as raised by Clarkson Community Council too, but it's the services that have to be provided, albeit it might be said that people are self-financing, but that finance can run out and then the cost does fall on the HC, the Health and Social Care Partnership, trying to avoid using abbreviations. So there's that aspect of it going forward. Is that something that might be changed for the future? And while I have the microphone on, can I also ask, just in general terms, there is an aspect involving this application about trees. When trees are reduced, why do you not have a like-for-like that other trees are planted in their place, on the aspect of think global but act local? So it could be that there's not enough room for replacement trees there, but could it be considered that the deficit on trees that have been removed could be planted elsewhere?
Thank you, Provost. Does anyone like to comment on the tree situation? I know, Julie, you want to come in?
The trees and
Bring in Mr. Pepler first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's 18 trees to be lost in 26 replacement. So in this case, there isn't a deficit, albeit we recognise that felling of mature trees is not the preference. But in this case, the actual trees within the site are, generally speaking, not of extreme quality. They've been managed over the years for that setting. So we're not talking about trees in a woodland setting. So no, we are entirely satisfied that for this application there isn't any significant issue sustainable development wise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In relation to the development contributions, it's something we're working with our Health and Social Care Partnership colleagues around the local development plan and future plans, LDP3 and so on. One of the things we will and are starting to discuss with them is the development contribution side of things and how that can help to mitigate the impact of care provision. What I would say is it's not something that could cover the cost, for instance, the on costs associated with care. That's something that's not a material consideration. And it couldn't cover things like GP provision either. But what it could look at is the provision of physical infrastructure, so buildings or facilities to accommodate such things. So it is something that that we're looking at. As Alan's alluded to, we're not in a position to seek affordable housing as part of this development, for instance, because it's not a residential development per se, and things like community facilities. Well, because of the type of development it is, we know that there wouldn't be an impact on education, for instance, or limited impact on community facilities. And we've discussed the roads matters, and roads have indicated that they wouldn't seek contributions for wider infrastructure. But it's something in terms of the development contribution side of things and health and social care, that's something that we are looking at and will probably bring to members in due course.
Thank you. Provost.
Thank you very much. Can I just clarify the number of trees that have been taken away? It's my understanding it's about 35, 36, and the number of replacement trees are about 26. So there is a deficit there, and given the value of trees to our environment, I'm making a plea for replacement trees, and it's something that I certainly will be giving more attention to going forward.
Thank you, Provost. Could you just reiterate these figures you have there, Mr. Pepler, for us? Thank you.
Yeah, the 35 might be over the 2 sites. So for this actual application, it is 18 to go, 26 to replace. So we're actually, there's more trees going back in than being lost for this site. That we'll get on to the other application. So that's got its own tree issues. But for this site, no, there's definitely more trees going back in than being taken away.
Thank you, Mr. Pepper. Has anybody any final comments? Because I think we'll probably go to a vote on this.
Yes, so it's just if anyone's, obviously the recommendation in the report is to approve subject to conditions, so it's just to put that to the committee if there's anyone who wants to.
Would anybody like to approve the application subject to conditions? Could I have a proposer for that, please?
I'm going the other way.
Okay, then take it. Do we have a vote on rejecting the proposal?
We just need a proposer and a seconder.
Would someone like to propose the rejection of it?
Yeah.
Councillor Cunningham proposes, seconded. Councillor Morrison.
And is there reasons for that? Yes, road safety and
HSCP.
Oh, right, can you hear me? Road safety and parking is my objection to it. And a four-storey building.
Yeah, it's the strategic planning policies which I have concerns with regards having a economically and socially sustainable community for the reasons I've previously stated in my contributions.
Thank you. And if no one's otherwise minded, is that the...
I wish to abstain in this matter. The reason I said it was because Mrs. McIntyre asked if anybody was otherwise minded.
Okay, we'll just have a show of hands then, just for clarity. All those against the proposal, please show hands.
Against what?
Against the application.
The application.
Yeah, against. Yes.
I'm against it.
Okay, thank you. So that's the unanimous decision.
One abstention from you, Councillor Allen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the unanimous decision of the committee, with the abstention from Councillor Edlin, is to approve the planning. Is to refuse the planning application that's outlined in the report for the reasons given. Thank you.
Oh, geez, sorry. Start again. This is application number 2021-0405 erection of extension to existing church building to create new church halls and community facilities, creation of a new vehicle and pedestrian access from Mansfield Road and formation of 5 new accessible parking bays, erection of a detached 2-storey dwelling house with driveway across to Mansfield Road. Again, this is Greenbank Church, 36 Eaglesham Road, Clarkson, and again, like Mr. Pepler, to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. As explained previously, this application and the associated listed building application are for the extension to the church for new church halls and community facilities with associated parking and access and erection of a 2-storey house. A total of 20 representations have been received with 15 objections and 5 support. These are summarised on pages 30 and 31 of the papers. The main issues relate to the negative impact on the listed building, visual impact, loss of open space, traffic congestion, loss of privacy and overshadowing, loss of trees, and noise, light and dust pollution. No objections have been received from consultees. Sorry, I'll just share some slides if I can. Oops, looks like So, just starting this slide. So this slide gives a 3D view of the proposed scheme with the new build elements highlighted in colour. The proposed extension is designed in a contemporary manner and is considered to be a high quality and sensitively designed proposal that will not detract from the character of the C-listed church. The house is also designed in a contemporary manner, taking into account the site levels, and is also considered to be a good quality design that will complement the setting of the church and manse. Just for your information, this is Mansfield Road running along here, and so there's two separate accesses, one for the house, one for the church parking. There's a total of 5 accessible car parking spaces in this area. One of the matters for consideration and issue raised in some of the objections is loss of trees. This plan shows the trees to be retained and felled. As you can see, some tree felling is proposed to accommodate the site entrance and also the area where the extension is proposed. So that's the site entrance, and the trees to be lost are indicated as outlined in red with the trees retained in green. This plan shows the proposed landscaping details, which includes some replacement tree planting primarily to the south and west of the extended church building in these areas. It is considered in terms of tree loss and visual impact that the proposal will retain the landscape character of the area through retention of the major tree groupings, in particular on the corner of Mansfield Road and Eaglesham Road. Although there is some loss to accommodate the development, the mitigation proposed is considered acceptable. These further slides show some of the detail of the proposed development, in particular the elevations of the house shown here, and the elevations, sorry, that's the elevation fronting onto Eaglesham Road. You can see the church here and the contemporary extension in this area, and the existing manse house which sits forward of the extension. In terms of the report, given the urban location of the site and that the proposal is for a combination of housing and community facilities, the proposal is supported in principle by local development plan policies. In this instance, as set out in the report, there are considered to be no material considerations that outweigh the policies in support, and as such, the proposal and associated listed building application, as detailed on pages 45 to 53 of the papers, are recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pepper. Is there any questions from the committee?
Yes. 5.
For the 4 buildings.
Yes, there's 5 spaces.
Councillor Ireland.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think, first of all, it's really important to note the previous application that we had in front of us was absolutely, we had an very strong objection in from the Community Council, but we actually have a support in from the Community Council for this. I think it's really good design, actually. I'm really pleased to see something of that calibre. I think it looks good. I wholeheartedly support it. And I think there's, it's page 35 in the report handling, It's the planners are saying it's considered that the proposed new halls and facilities will improve the existing community facilities as well as allow for the range of activities to be extended, thereby promoting social and community benefits within the area. And it absolutely would, because it's the heart of the community. This church that's used for so much, and these plans are absolutely, I for one really welcome them. So thank you very much. I don't have any questions. It was just more a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Edlin?
Actually, Councillor Ireland echoes what I was going to say, but from what I looked at and I saw the plans, I don't think there will be much change of use. So there is no parking issue here that I can see, but perhaps Councillor Ireland can comment on that unless in case I've read it wrong. But I think it's a good development also.
That was my understanding from reading the report handling as well, that there wasn't that much change in the parking. I think there's 5 parking spaces, but I don't think the effect that this is having is as much as the previous one that we discussed, which would have a terrible detrimental effect on the parking across the road. This isn't the same. That's my understanding as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? From looking at the papers, I know Clarkston Community Council highlighted some concerns regarding the new vehicle access and lack of parking, but notes the parking situation is no different to the current situation. So that's the only thing I can see. Councillor Provost Montague, did you want something to say? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. You did look at me when trees were mentioned, so I will respond. Page 37, paragraph talks about the proposal will result in the loss of 39 trees of mixed size and condition. It does mention that there are other trees at Mansfield Road and Eaglesham Road, as well as other trees. But again, I wish to highlight the positive impact that trees have on the environment, and just would like to clarify what is the deficit in this case, and again raise in general terms, if there is a deficit in a planning application, what are the options for other trees to be planted even elsewhere to make up for that loss?
Thank you, Provost. There is on page 37, the bottom states, should the planning authority be a mind to approve the application, a condition can be attached to the planning permission ensuring adequate replanting and retention of trees. Consequently, it is considered that proposal raises no significant terms in loss of trees. Is that correct, Mr. Pepper? Am I reading in that?
Yes, we can. We can impose. We're proposing a condition on trees, and if necessary, we could add to that if it was deemed necessary to ensure that there's no overall deficit. Because I think in this one it is acknowledged that there's some mature trees, especially on Mansfield Road, that are being removed. So it's slightly more complex than the other one. If that would be something that we could add into the condition, if the councillors are minded to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Pepper. Provost, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I would be delighted if that was the case. Thank you.
Okay, any other?
Could I just
Yep, Councillor Cunningham.
Sorry, I forget, I don't need that really. Is it quite a big bit of ground that's behind to the side of the church? Because I feel as though with an extension, a new church hall, and what was the other thing? There's something else there, and only 5 parking spaces. I think it was either very crammed, or is it a big area? Somebody answer?
Yep, sure. Thank you. I don't know if you can see it on the screen here, but I've put the site plan up, so. Yeah, I mean, you've got the existing manse just now, which effectively sits in isolation within the site, and there is a new house on the bottom left-hand corner proposed, which has its own dedicated parking. But what you're... Yes, the manse just now is the bigger one you can see just in the centre right. I can point. The church, you can see at the very top here, you can see the pews within the church, and the extension is the L-shaped building here. So that's the contemporary extension. The house is in this area. I think it'd be fair to say what you're getting with the new access and parking is probably improved access. My understanding is that the existing situation is it's fairly informal, so there is an area you can drive into the church, sorry, I was just going to say there's no formal parking as is proposed just now at present. I think you can go into the church and park, but I don't think it's a dedicated facility. That's why the report concludes that there's no overall deficit.
Off-street parking, you know, on the main road, yeah.
There could, it's possible there could be parking on the main road, but that's no different from the current situation. There's lots of clubs operate just now from the halls.
Thank you.
I think just to Councillor Cunningham, just to reiterate what Alan's saying, that the position is unchanged. So the number of parking spaces which currently exist will be replicated, and the access and provision improved. It's more formally presented in the new scheme rather than a bit more of an ad hoc arrangement of but it's remaining unchanged, so it's not being increased or decreased.
Points are there?
There's two charging points on the. There's 2 charging points in the care home application. I don't know if there's any on this one. What we're doing is proposing a condition to clarify whether there'll be any charging points. So that's something we sometimes do for applications when the applicant doesn't provide that information. We can put a condition on. Sorry, that it stipulates that. Yeah, condition 12. They have to come back to us and tell us how they're going to address it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pelbert. I think that's, have we kind of been through all the comments on this? Could I, if no one has indicated that they're otherwise minded, therefore the committee agreed to support the application, subject to the condition of replacing the amount of trees being taken down?
I've got the parking spaces up in the charging points.
And that's a condition already in.
Right, okay.
That's fine. And do you have a seconder for that motion, Chair?
Councillor Ireland.
Councillor Ireland. Is anyone otherwise minded? No. Okay, so just to approve, the decision of the committee then is to approve planning permission subject to conditions outlined in the report, and an update to condition 5 to include that the deficit and the loss of trees will be compensated by replanting.
Okay, we now move on to the consideration, the application for the listed building consent. Is that right, isn't it? Yep. Yeah. I will move the application be approved subject to the conditions set out in the approval. Is anyone otherwise minded?
So just looking for a seconder for that. Is that Councillor Ireland? Yeah. Is anyone otherwise minded? Okay, so just to confirm the decision of the committee, and that's to approve the listed building consent subject to the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you.
I keep forgetting to do. Sorry. Application 2021-0690 TP, alteration to approved housing layout comprising substation of housing types 58 units and amended to road layouts as associated works. Mr. Petler, this is at Maidenhill, sorry, could you comment please?
Ian Walker, my colleague here, is just going to present that one.
That's fine, Mr. Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As the Chair has outlined, this is an application to change the house types in a residential plot at the large Maidenhill development in the south side of Newton Mearns. The larger development has been ongoing now for four or 5 years. This is the last pod, and the developer, Taylor Wimpey, have decided to just do a remix, effectively, is the term, in terms of substituting house types. Some are less popular than others, so they replace them with more popular house types. It's relatively common in many ways. Generally speaking, the house types are all large detached units. There has been a general increase in more larger units rather than the smaller units that were originally approved. But in general terms, it's policy compliant. The main other changes refer to junction alterations, but the houses themselves are being sited broadly in accordance with the garden layout and the streets as per the original application. Consultations are supportive in terms of this application. There's no objections to the application. So other than that, I'm just trying to keep it simplified given the previous agendas. So if there's any questions from the councillors, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Councillor Ireland.
It's just a quick question, because I remember when this came up before us and it was, plan was actually really wonderful and there was lots of green. Has there been any usable green space removed as a consequence of these changes?
Not removed, councillor. Possibly the plan that you had was from a different, I think the last time we were here it was a different developer. But certainly the pod itself is enclosed in a framework of landscaping, so it'd be a simple matter of colouring that up, but it's just not done in that plan.
Thank you. Any further questions? No. If not, anyone otherwise minded, I agree to approve the application subject to conditions set out in the report. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Edlin.
That's right. Is anyone otherwise minded? No. So the decision of the committee is to approve planning permission subject to the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much everyone. That's this part of the meeting finished. We will do the local review body in 5 minutes. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much.